ever imagined the world right before the destruction? I think almost all of you guys never thought of it, and today I'm going to make a presentation of the Cuban Missile Crisis, which is the situation just before the world destruction. Before I start my presentation, let's have a time to know the contents. First, I'm going to shortly explain the Cuban Missile Crisis, and then I'm going to divide the incident into 4 parts: before, during, and then the after. And lastly, we will have a time for the quizzes, so please pay attention to my presentation. Then, let's get started. Short preview. The Cuban Missile Crisis happened during the October 14th to October 28th in 1962, and it occurred between the US and the USSR, and this crisis may have caused a huge world war. Let's move on to the next part, before the incidents. At that time, the Cuba succeeded on the Cuban Revolution. Before the Cuban Revolution, the Cuba was much closer to the US, but after the revolution, the Cuba began to get closer to the Soviet Union. So the US attempted to assassinate Castro, which is the leader of the Cuba, and it failed. And this case is called the Bay of Pigs invasion. Cuba, which felt the threat by the United States, asked the help to the Soviet Union, so the Cuban Missile Crisis started. Then, during the incidents, in the late 1950s, the US arranged missiles in Italy and Turkey, which is close to the Soviet Union. And to deal with this, the USSR, Soviet Union, arranged missiles in Cuba and Florida, which is close to the US. And the Cuba was about 150 kilometers far away from the US, so it was very suitable to attack the United States. The Soviet Union firstly sent the defensive weapons in the Cuba, but gradually they sent the offensive weapons to the Cuba. And Oleg Penkovsky, which is the captain of the USSR, secretly sent information to the US because he thought the nuclear war might break out. And the United States needed confirmation and sent the U-2 spy plane into the Cuba to confirm it. And the United States was shocked to see the missile arranged. And Cuba's missiles were within about 8 minutes to reach the United States. The US decided to progress a naval blockade. But there was one big problem. It's because the naval blockade means declaring a war. After that, on October 22nd, 1962, the President of the United States, Kennedy, left the final notice to the Soviet Union, and the World War was on the verge of breaking out. Not only each country, but also countries allied with, began to prepare for the war. And in the end, fortunately, the Soviet Union surrendered first through the radio broadcasts. Since then, the Soviet Union removed the missiles in Florida and Cuba, and the US removed the missiles in Turkey and Italy. Finally, after the incident, after the Cuban Missile Crisis, the Cuba experienced the economic devastation and food shortage despite the help of the Soviet Union. And this is the end of my presentation, and if you guys don't have any question, I'm going to move on to the quiz. Number 1 is the OX quiz, and the Soviet Union surrendered first.
Oh,
And number 2, what is the meaning of a naval blockade?
it means declaring war.
I hope there's no event like this, which is very dangerous. And I want to say thank you for everyone listening my presentation.